Hi guys, welcome back to my garden. Today we are doing a full July garden tour for Zone 7B, Southern Maryland. I'm going to go bed by bed and show you what I'm growing and what I plan to do with some of these beds in the fall. Spoiler alert that I'll probably be digging up a lot of mint and you'll see that shortly. We'll start at the beginning of the garden, which just happens to be the least productive bed, and end with the last bed that just so happens to be the most productive. So that sorted itself out nicely. We'll start with least, end with most productive, front to back. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start right here with this container. So in last month's tour, this was planted with like watermelon and cantaloupe, and those were growing kind of slow. So I moved those over to the raised garden bed where they're doing great, and we replanted these with beans. So we have red noodle beans, Carmenite red pole beans, and also the green yard long beans, which you guys will see in the raised garden tour next week because they are shining right now. This is all of the mint that I plan on. My husband laughed when I said this, but I plan on digging it up in the fall time so we can replant this area with like brassicas, maybe some flowers down the middle to break it up, because this is a very wide bed. It's about 6 feet wide, which is way too wide. So I'm thinking of planting flowers down the middle and brassicas on each side eventually. But that's if I can dig up all of this mojito mint. I have enough mint to make mojitos for all of the state of Maryland. And I don't even like mojitos, so I don't know why I decided to plant that in the ground like a rookie, but I did. This rosemary here is still struggling. I mentioned before that this had a very hard winter, but there's a lot of new growth, so I don't want to kill it because it's still growing. So I'm just leaving it here. And all of this comfrey, I do plan on digging all of this up as well, because it's just so much space. I mean, this is a long bed. I forget, it's like 20 something feet long and 7 feet wide, or 6 feet wide, something like that. I also have this random cucumber plant that self-seeded itself from last year, and we just let it grow because, again, I have an issue with killing these plants. I planted some Swiss chard in this section here. Last month I had peas planted here, and the peas were not a success, so that was a kind of a disappointment, which, you know, it's not really that big of a disappointment because I don't like peas cooked. So it was a bit of an experiment. So I just replanted this with Swiss chard since this is a shady area. And I also planted some melons to kind of just traverse this area. Again, as I'm cutting back the comfrey, I'm digging up little comfrey plants so that I can slowly start to reclaim this area. Okay, so we'll wrap around to this other side. As you can see, the melon seedlings have already started to pop up, and it's warm, so they're going to grow pretty fast. I've got some up here. The type of melons, one is a Minnesota midget cantaloupe. The other is a crimson sweet watermelon. Another would be the sugar baby watermelon. And I have the mixed Fort Hook varieties of Swiss chard here. This is nasturtium. I planted the seed, I forget which variety it is. Oh, here's some grass. But it's bouncing back from being surrounded by comfrey and weeds. So I had to weed this area heavily. And I planted some okra on this side because we love okra fried and stewed. And we also harvested a bunch of kohlrabi. So these kohlrabi I left, this one is a little strange. It's growing a little vertical. And I also have another one here, but the rest we've already harvested. So we're replanting with summer vegetables. So the key for this season is to be nimble and agile and plant as we go. So lots of stuff growing over here. We have a white lady tomato that I forgot was over here and it wasn't planted. I just planted it, so yeah, it looks like it's struggling. We also have green beans. that's self-seeded. So these green beans are not as good as the green beans that we planted on purpose. As you can see, there's a little stink bug on this one, but they're kind of small. And if you miss them, they get very beany, like this one. Yeah, like that. So you don't really get much, and these are getting attacked by beetles. So we just put out Japanese beetle traps to help with the beetles. But these beans I let grow here. I'm not going to let them grow here next year because they're kind of taking over the hydrangea you'll see on the other side. Even though it's free and I had to do no work but stick a tomato cage right here, I think I'm going to skip them next year. I also have a sunrise sauce tomato here. As you can see, this one is got lots of tomatoes. I mean, it's covered in tomatoes, and we've already gotten 2 handfuls of tomatoes from this. I'm going to freeze the ones that are ripe, and as they ripen, we'll continue to freeze them, and I'll make a sauce because this is a paste tomato. So this is very exciting. I also have a sun sugar tomato right here, which was struggling again because of weeds. I just came through and had to weed this whole area right here. But these are good. They have the texture of grapes, but they taste like a tomato. And this is a self-seeded tomato. When I say weeds, when I say I'm weeding, a lot of the time I'm weeding things that are actual vegetables or plants that we would use. And cherry tomatoes is one of those things. If you've ever grown cherry tomatoes in your garden, then you know these things are weeds. They pop up everywhere. We probably have hundreds of these plants, despite the hundreds that we weeded. So some we just let go, and you know, you win some, you lose some. This bed is called the onions that never were bed, because if you remember from last month and the month before, we had yellow onions and red onions planted in this bed, but again, weeds just went crazy and the onions didn't grow, but the carrots did. So we've been harvesting carrots, and I'm very satisfied with the sunrise early mix. Or is it, oh my god, I'll put the variety name on the screen because I keep forgetting, but I'm very happy. Okay, I can't pull this up. So this is one of the benefits, the features of having clay soil, is that you can never dig up your carrots. So hold on one second. Wow. Okay. Finally. Yes. So I've been enjoying these. This is like a sunrise mix of carrots. They're really good. This is a nice size. And even though the onions didn't work out, the carrots did. And you'll find that in gardening. Not everything's going to work out. Or if it does, that's great. But I wouldn't expect it to. So we'll eat this for dinner. Also have Ragged Jack kale here that looks really good, and we've been harvesting from this. And a hydrangea here. We'll get to these 2 beds in a second, but we'll walk up the other side. So we kind of came down the back end here, and we'll walk in here. So this space right here, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Maybe plant some more paste tomatoes or something. It's probably going to be a seed. Since I know that this area grows with a lot of weeds, I'm not going to plant shallow rooted vegetables or plants. So I have to figure it out. We're getting a little late in the season, so I need to make that decision pretty quick. Also, more Ragged Jack on this side. And you can see the dwarf Siberian kale on this side. This we have harvested a lot from. It's actually been not too bad with the pests lately, so we've been enjoying that. This is supposed to be a 6-pack of dwarf Siberian. I always have one like kale plant that doesn't fall in line with the rest of them. This is obviously not dwarf Siberian, but it's doing well amongst them. So all right, let's go ahead and carry on to these two beds here. So it's been so extremely hot. I have been getting beat up by the sun, and I'm trying not to let it get the best of me, but it has been so hot. So I'm going to try to position myself in the shade as much as possible. So if it gets a little dark, I'm so sorry guys, but it's really hot outside. So for these two beds, I'm going to come down the back side and then walk down the middle there. So I have comfrey here that I am slowly digging up. In May or April, we planted onions that got completely shaded out by cilantro. So if you guys remember in the last garden tour, there was a bunch of cilantro or coriander that was flowering in this bed. We've taken that and hung it up here, and I'll be taking that in the house so that we can dry it and use it for cooking. And in the process of taking that up, there's lots of cilantro seeds that fall to the ground, and we'll have plenty of cilantro sprouting for the fall season. So we're not worried about that. So all the cilantro is gone. So all the cilantro is gone, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to plant here. Obviously, this is another wide bed, so I want to plant something down the middle so I can separate the sides to make it easier to manage. So some perennial that I won't have to really deal with, maybe rosemary or something like that. I don't know. I want this to transition into an herb garden eventually, so I have to start thinking like that, like perennial, not annual. There are some carrots that are popping up here. I do have dwarf Siberian kale that survived the cilantro onslaught. And we have broccoli here that, you know, I'm just going to pull this up at some point. I just have to replace this bed. And at this point in the season, it's kind of hard to find things to keep plugging in because it's, you know, we only have about 90 days left or so. You know, it's warming up. So 90 days or so. So we have to be considerate of what we're going to be self-seeding. So this is another bed that gets overweeded quickly. So I don't want to plant anything that I need to weed constantly. This racket jack looks amazing. And we still have some cabbage that it's not ready yet. It's still bulbing. It has taken on some pest damage, but our brassicas are recovering now that we've been using BP, and we use Wondercide as well. And this is a lemongrass plant that I forgot about. And while I was weeding, I said, oh, this doesn't look like a weed. This looks like lemongrass. You can tell by the stalks here. Yeah, and it smells really good. I made the mistake of planting this in the corner right here. I did this last year and it got so big that it swallowed up this lane right here. And I made the same mistake this year. So I'm expecting that this is going to be hard to cross come August, September. But, you know, it's fine. It's not a big deal. I also have more fennel popping up. I have fennel all over the garden that just self-seeds. And this big old lemon balm plant that I've been hacking down as it's grown. It has grown this way, it has grown that way, and I've had to chop these, you know, I have had to chop it down. And I have a lot of lemon balm for tea, so that's really good, but it grows so ferociously. So let's go ahead and continue down this way. Here I have Thai basil that has self-seeded from last year. And I have this artichoke that I mentioned in the last video. This artichoke that Ezra picked up from the local nursery. He picked up a bunch of them. So this is one. There's also one on the other side that I forgot to mention. I also have orange bell peppers here. And this is a mammoth jalapeno. So I just planted these after doing a weeding ceremony over here. And there's also some marigolds, some beets that we'll harvest and juice because that's usually how we use beets. And on this side here, again, lemon balm. We also have some cabbages here. Looks like this one is going through something, so I'll have to take a look at that. Those were swallowed up by lemon balm and comfrey. So I dug up comfrey that was over here, and I had to cut back the lemon balm. So I'll just pull those at this point. It's too late, and I can plant something else there. And we have more peppers. So these are all peppers here, and more Thai basil that's self-seeded. Serrano peppers, jalapeno peppers, poblano peppers, and more jalapeno peppers. This is the salsa aroma that was struggling in the last month's tour, but is bouncing back. The lavender that's right next to it. Don't ask me why I planted these two so close together. These are Swiss chard seedlings that I planted a long time ago. I actually forgot that I planted these, and they just popped up out of nowhere. So I'm going to actually dig these up and space them out in areas that I have that are open. These are the collards that are taking a pest beating. These collards are struggling really bad to the point where I'm debating on whether I want to just pull them up. But because I'm already having a hard time replanting at this time of the year, I don't know if I want to just make more work for myself. So for right now, they stay. Yep, so the collards may go. I just have to figure out what my strategy is going to be so that I don't leave any empty space in the garden. I just don't want to deal with weeds. Here is mint that I chopped up yesterday that has to be thrown out. And I have a pepper here. This is a Hungarian hot pepper. This tomato, this is a Black Beauty tomato, and a Hungarian hot pepper, and marigolds. As you'll see, I have marigolds all over the place. We'll just walk over here, and you'll see this is more coriander. You can see the seeds here. The seeds are what we use for cooking. This open area here, there's a Black Beauty zucchini here, seedling. And it's good to always plant successions of things like squash, because as you'll see in the raised garden tour, we have a zucchini over there that's struggling. But in this garden, we have two baby zucchini seedlings that can replace that once it decides to poop out. We also have radishes here. These are the white icicle radishes that we will make pickled radishes with. More fennel that's self-seeded. This is another artichoke. It actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to look like that. Here's another Roma tomato, lettuce leaf basil, and we've just been taking the tops off so that they can bush out. Green onions are also here that I planted in March. This, I think, is a Romanesco cauliflower, but I'm probably just going to pull it out because it's getting so hot, or it is so hot. Yep. Sage here, that's been here for years, at least 3 or 4 years. This sage has been here. I just planted a mushroom plant. This is another one of the plants that I forgot about. But this supposedly tastes like mushrooms. So I don't like the texture of mushrooms. So I'm hoping that will be a good replacement, a good compromise for us. I also planted a rosemary here, thinking that it's going to fill up this area in the coming years. Since this kale will be done by the end of the season, we'll have a nice little rosemary corner on the side. I really love rosemary with chicken, you know, just cooking it, using it in marinades. But this is this side of the garden. I forgot to show you guys the cabbage right here, or maybe I showed you on the other side and I can't remember. But we're going to harvest this. We have 2 more cabbages in the house that we have to cook. We have this one, and I'm just going to pull the rest of these. I'm probably going to pull that one and see how disgusting it is on the inside. This one is still growing, so we'll see. The chives here were drowned out by lemon balm and comfrey, so they are trying to bounce back. All right, so that is this side of the garden, as you guys can see. Now we're going to tackle that side of the garden. sitting in the shade because it's wild how hot it is out here right now. It is crazy. So on this side, the right side of the garden, we mostly focused on brassicas in the beginning of the season because it's a nice shady part of the garden. But we're in a transitional season and we've taken out a lot of the broccoli, or all of the broccoli, and replaced it with tomatoes and a few other things. So we can take a look at this side of the garden and talk about the most productive things and the things that didn't really work out so well. So this is the left side. We talked about the beans growing here. And on this side, I also have beans growing here. So both of these containers have Chinese red noodle beans. These are all plants that have to go. But both of these have Chinese red noodle beans, yard-long beans, and Carminat red pole beans. So once you see next week's video and you see how those beans are looking right now, I mean, it's incredible. And I can't wait for it to climb this trellis. I'm expecting in about 60 days or so, since they're already starting to sprout, I'm expecting in about 60 days we'll have some growth going up these trellises here, not just coriander hanging there. As I thought, gladiolus did pop up and they were beautiful, but the rain caused them to kind of fall over. But once the season is done, we'll dig up this whole bed because it's really hard to get all the weeds out of there right now without disturbing what's already here. So it's not a big priority for me. Even though I thought it was a priority, I'm not too concerned at this point because it's getting too hot to worry about everything. This is the bee balm. As you can see, it's getting very pollinated. There's been a lot of sphinx moths on this, a lot of butterflies and pollinators. It's a really great plant to bring in pollinators. If you want hummingbirds and the sphinx moths and butterflies, plant bee balm. I promise you, you'll get a lot of that. We have another red acre cabbage here that's bulbing up, not quite ready yet. Swiss chard is hiding underneath the bee balm here. Marigolds. This is more dwarf Siberian kale. These leaves get really big, by the way. And all of the dino kale. So this is my favorite kale. It tastes like, it has the texture of kale, but the flavor of cabbage, in my opinion. We've had a couple of plants that are suffering from damage, but we're dealing with it. But in general, these have produced really well for us. So very happy with this. And if you look down here, I planted a couple of squash seeds. Pumpkin. I planted a couple of pumpkin seeds that I'm hoping will grow underneath the cabbage to prevent weeds, or at least minimize the weeds, because I have been coming through and weeding this every couple of weeks and it is a bit of a pain in the butt. I also have, if we could look down this way, we have ground cherries that have self-seeded, and they've grown here since our very first year of having this garden. So we have ground cherries all over the place, just like cherry tomatoes, but we actually like having these. As you can see, they look kind of like little tomatillos. They have a tropical flavor. They're like the texture of a cherry tomato, but the flavor of like a tropical plant. And Ezra really loves these. I also have a zucchini. So the disappointing part of this bed is that the dahlias didn't come back fully and fill in this whole area. So I used that as an opportunity to plant another zucchini. We had 2 sprout, and I moved the other one to that side, which we just talked about, since the one in the garden bed has not been doing so well. So zucchini here. I also got some sunflower seeds donated for my mom's job, so we planted some sunflower seeds on this side, and we'll be surprised with what kind of seeds they are. And let's go ahead and walk down this bed. So if you watched the broccoli video, then you will remember this bed being filled with broccoli. But now we have this one random cauliflower plant or Romanesco plant that I'm just curious to see what this is going to do. So I'm just leaving it here. Even if it's just a trap crop, I'm just going to leave it here. We have our blueberries that we ate off of this season. We have all of our marigolds, and we have tomatoes. So a few different varieties. I'm going to do a video where I just talk about the different varieties of tomatoes we're growing. But these are all some form of either paste tomato or a dwarf tomato, because I don't have like an extended amount of trellising or a trellising system to grow into indeterminates right here. We have experimented in the past with like strings and pole, all sorts of stuff, but I find it's just easier for me to just grow some paste tomatoes here, stick up some tomato cages, and keep it simple. So these are all dwarf or some sort of paste. And if I'm shocked, because this one here does not look like a dwarf tomato, it doesn't. You know, it says it is. But if it does grow too much, I'll just top it off and cut the top so it won't grow any more past the tomato cage. I also have lilies here that are popping up from last year. They were, I don't think, doing so well because of all of the broccoli, but it seems like they're coming back. More marigolds. This is a pink flower that has already done its thing. And we also have some beets popping up here. So if you look, there's lots of seeds. Oops, sorry bee, the dragonfly. Okay, as you can see here, there are lots of seedlings popping up and an occasional grass. But these are all golden beets that we'll use for juicing. This is all parsley, and we use parsley a lot for salads and breakfast and dinner, for everything really. So this has been producing a lot. This plant is very this plant is very mad at me. It's struggling. It is a phlox, and I didn't see it in a pot somewhere, and I just planted it. So I'm hoping that it will bounce back, but if it doesn't, it's my fault. And on the other side of these tomatoes, we actually planted some basil. So we have lettuce leaf basil, lemon basil. I didn't even know they had a lime basil, cinnamon basil. So I'm hoping in the next 60 days or so, this will be a row of basil in front of the tomatoes. So the strategy here was to have the tomatoes in the middle, the basil on one side, and the marigolds on the other side, since tomatoes grow well with basil and marigolds. So I'm hoping that vision comes to life. Everything else has been working out, so I'm hoping that vision comes to life. There's also a basil on this side here. I think this is a Genovese basil. Anyways, lots of different types of basil. I also have a sage I planted here, which I'm expecting will take up this corner. So I'm trying to learn my lessons, and I'm trying to put on the corners of these beds perennials that will withstand the weeds. So I know that sage will get pretty established. So I'm hoping that will combat the weeds creeping into the beds, the crabgrass and all of that. Okay, so since we're still on this side, we'll walk down this side and come around the back. All right, so we have green onions here that I planted back in March, I believe. This is a Mexican sage, and it smells amazing, so I can't wait for that to get big. More blueberries, Brussels sprouts that have been getting, I don't even have to say it at this point, but you can see that, the little Brussels are starting to form. So we're just letting it go, see what happens. All this parsley, I seeded in March and it just magically appeared. Luckily, this area is a little bit shaded. There's a lot of plants over here. So I'm hoping that the parsley will go good. So this is the flat leaf giant Italian parsley. This is a fennel that self-seeded itself. And we will obviously use this for stews and sausages and things like that once the seeds form. This is another plant that brings in a lot of good pollinators. So we often let this just grow. It's hard for me to pull stuff like this up. So I just move around it. It's the plant's world, not mine. I also planted more golden beets in this area here. Again, anytime there's an empty space, you want to fill it as soon as you possibly can. It doesn't usually work out like that all the time, but when you can. This is another blueberry that's getting swallowed up by the kale and the comfrey. I'll be probably leaving this comfrey because I'm okay with growing comfrey under the perennials because it's a good living mulch. And I really don't often have to deal with weeding the blueberries because I'm always covering the bottom of the blueberries with comfrey. If you want to learn more about comfrey, then watch my May garden tour video if you haven't seen it. And here I've cut back a lot of comfrey. I think I'm going to dig up the comfrey here so that I can plant something else. That's a good space to grow like a squash or something like that. So I'm considering it, but for now I'm just going to leave it as is. There's also another rosemary here because again, I love rosemary. More noodles planted in this container here. It's just that I just covered it up with coriander because we have so much of it. We probably won't even use it all. All right, so for this bed, the strategy we'll use is we're going to go down this way and then we'll come back up the backside so that we can see what's going on in here. But just spoiler alert, there's a lot of good Swiss chard growing in here. So you can see there's a couple varieties here. We have the Ford Hook, the regular version here. And we also have the mixed colors variety. So the mixed colors variety obviously is much prettier. But this is a good spinach alternative if you want to have a different kind of green. You're just getting sick of kale and collard greens or spinach. This is a good plant to grow. Again, more fennel that's popping up, more comfrey on this side. And here we have tomatillos. So I had a few different varieties of tomatillos and a couple passed away. And I'm trying to see if there's anything here that's going to pollinate these. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, doesn't look like these will be pollinated. So I'll give it some time, but I can't find any more tomatillos and it's too late in the season to grow them from seed. So, this might be a little bit of a loss when it comes to tomatillos this season, but we'll keep all hope. We'll see. Again, more Swiss chard. These are radishes that have gone to seed because we've gotten a lot of radishes this spring. And on this back side, there's mostly oregano and kale. Why do I keep saying oregano? Arugula. There's arugula and kale on this side, mixed in with some fennel plants, as you can see. And we use this mostly for salads, but it's time for the arugula to self-seed itself, and we'll just grow it that way for now. This is all oregano, and to think that we cut most of this back and dug up about, 70-80% of this, and it looks like we haven't touched it. So oregano, not only is it really good for cooking, it is also really good for bringing in bees and pollinators. So I often leave oregano because it's an easy flower to just have in the garden, because I get sick of just looking at green all the time, but mostly because it brings in a lot of pollinators. So just something to think about. And I'm just gonna move around. Here's another tomatillo. So these I neglected to say are the Rio Grande tomatillos, and we'll see if there's anything here to pollinate it, but I doubt it. And the last tour, you may remember that this was all lettuce. This lettuce has gone to seed. I left a couple so that it can self-seed and so that it can kind of cover up the Brussels sprouts, but I've replanted this area with carrots. So I'm using the new Corota carrots, and I'm hoping that they'll start to sprout. Actually, I do see a few seedlings starting to sprout, so very excited about that. Ragged Jack kale, this pokeweed that refuses to go away no matter how much we try to pull it up, and all of the curly kale that still is looking really good. So at some point we have to do another curly kale harvest, but We have so many vegetables in the house, it's really hard to eat them all and keep them all and preserve them all. So just being real. In the last video, I mentioned that we're going to start to divide this bed up, and we've done that. So we have the Rudbeckia, is Gold Sturm Rudbeckia, and the Cheyenne Spirit Echinaceas, which is a kind of orangey, yellowy type of echinacea. I also have pink echinaceas growing here, but I accidentally chopped it off while I was weeding. We won't talk about that. The carrots that were growing in between the broccoli that used to be planted here are doing really good. And if you can take a look here, you'll see that there's a bunch of seedlings. These seedlings are tatsoi and baby bok choy, which if you've seen previous videos, sorry for saying that again, we had a lot of success with toy choy. So this, yes, I planted it like this on purpose because I tend to like to overseed, because there's always places, there are always empty spots where I can move these plants into, versus me trying to struggle and plant like at the correct spacing. So what I do is I overseed, and I do this with lettuce a lot, and then I will take these seeds and space them out to the correct spacing, and I'll move the ones that are obviously they won't fit, I'll move them to spaces and areas that are open so that they can start growing there. So that is a way for you to direct sow in mass and still be able to move plants around. Here's some more carrots. Here's some fennel. And is this a mushroom plant? Oh wow, this is another mushroom plant. Okay, so if you guys are wondering why I have these pots all over the place, just know that I have a 4-year-old. As you can see by his little baby wheelbarrow over there, I have a 4-year-old. So just bear with me here. Okay, so let's go ahead around the back side. This is another Rudbeckia. More carrots, more kale, and this is a walking stick kale. You can tell this is walking stick kale because of how tall the actual stalk is, and these leaves get pretty big. This is a pretty big leaf. Yep. This one hasn't done that great with the pests, but this is my first time growing it, and I'm curious to see what it's going to look like at the end of the season. So we're just leaving it here under the shade. We have beets growing over here. Yep, right here. Yep, right there. And calendula that we seeded. Here, the beautiful orange flowers. These are an edible flower, and it's also a medicinal flower, so you can use it for many things. And strawberries that have pooped out for the season, and more green onions. So that is the right side of the garden. About this heat is that this morning it was only 79 degrees, but it felt like 96 degrees to, the meteorologist. But to me, it felt like 106 degrees at 79 degrees. So yes, I'm hiding in the shade. And if you're wondering, is she trying to bait me into asking what these are? Yes, I am. And I'll cover that in next week's garden tour when we go through the raised garden. Because I don't have time to film it today. But if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, comment, tell me what you have growing in your garden, what issues you're facing. If you have any ideas, recommendations, I'd love to hear them. And if you want to see what it looked like in this garden last month, then click on this video right here, and you can see everything that we started growing for our spring garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.